yourselves once again to the third and final review of the session. This time we have SiNKR 2 to review. If you recall, we did an interview. I guess it's now a partial interview or a broken interview. The point is, technical problems happened during the broadcast. Some of the interview didn't get recorded. It split up into two parts. Anyway, so we also did an interview with the creator of this game, about a week and a half ago?
Something like that.
But if you missed that, SiNKR 2 is not just the second game in the SiNKR franchise, but both games are a hooked-based logical puzzle game. That is to say, you have hooks here. They are used to collect dots and squares, and in order to put them into the similarly shaped holes. And once you fill all the holes, you move on to the next puzzle. I mean, and that's pretty much the core of the game here. In terms of basic gameplay. That is not to say that it's just puzzle after puzzle after puzzle of the same thing. No, this will introduce new concepts, new twists. Like for example, it will introduce arrows, which do what you would think that they would do. Like if you put a block there, it will go in that direction, and you have to use those arrows to get certain blocks into certain areas that you can otherwise reach, or you might use it for something that's not immediately obvious. More on that in a bit. It's like, or one step higher from that, the arrows become mappable. That is to say, if you click on them, they will change direction, and once again, you use that in your puzzle solving. And mind you, this is the basics. There are some deeper nuances to the gameplay. For example, a lot of the time the hooks can be moved back and forth, either left, right, or up, down. And
so you have to do that by hooking another hook into them.
No. I'm talking about actually switching them back and forth. You just click on those. Oh,
left to right, yeah.
Yeah. You're talking about actually moving the hooks back and forth. I'm talking about actually flipping the hooks. Yeah. Moving the hooks is usually a one-way affair. Unless you hook them together, then you can move them back and forth. So long as you keep them on the same line. Like if you've got a hook that's going left and a hook that's going right, and one of them flips to the up-down position, it'll unhook and go, and you can't use that anymore. Unless you've got a hook that's doing it in that direction. Other bits of nuance are the holes themselves. Circle holes can only be filled in by circle blocks, for lack of a better term. But the square blocks can actually be filled by the squares and the circles. And yes, that will figure into some of the puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, block placement is going to be a big part of the equation for a lot of these puzzles, especially a lot of what Robert called the mini-boss puzzles. Those are the more advanced puzzles that look really difficult at first glance. Basically, you're going to be spending some time on some of the more complicated puzzles. And that is not to say that the difficulty progression here is a straight upward curve. It's actually more a series of ups and downs raising up, because the game is going to introduce more and more concepts as you go along, as you'd expect. But what the game will do is it'll ramp it back down to basically trainee level. Like literally, the first couple of puzzles will teach you how to do it how to deal with the new paradigm, so to speak. And then we'll add a bit more complexity to it and a bit more until, you get back up to mini-boss level again. And it will do that, per hex you go through. The game clocks in at a whopping 87 puzzles. So there's a fair bit here. It's not too long of a game, though. Also, in spite of its looks, it's not that difficult. Certainly some of the later puzzles, certainly some of the more elaborate mini-boss puzzles are going to... You're not going to be able to solve, like, the 6-bar puzzle that appears on the Steam site, for example. You're not going to be able to solve that right away. Like, that's not a 15-second puzzle. That's you're probably going to engage in some trial and error. You're probably going to have to figure out, what goes where in which order. There is some trial and error puzzle solving here, most likely. Although Robert did say most of, if not all of these puzzles, you can solve purely through vision. Just you can figure out where the lines go even before you move the hooks. Granted, I think that's only certain people. Certain people will probably just need to play around with the hooks. Mm-hmm. But the nice thing about this game is it's among the most casual of puzzle games I've ever played. People like to call puzzle games casual games. That's not entirely accurate. I mean, puzzle games can be stressful.
Yeah.
And this puzzle game, I guess, could be stressful. But here's the thing: there's no pressure. There's no penalty for restarting. There's no time intervals. There's no stars to get. There's no bonus shit to get. There's no, there's nothing that.
You can always stop and think about what you're doing.
Yeah, It's like you can play around with a puzzle to your heart's content and not suffer any consequences. Even the mobile versions. Because once again, that's a special extra consideration on mobile puzzle games because a lot of those are filled with the mobile mobile monetization. Say that 5 times fast. Energy bars, time limiters, that kind of thing that'll put extra pressure on your game. This game, it's just on pure casual mode for the entire game. I mean, it's going to get...
There's not even like a thing that like counts how many moves you make or whatever. So on ones where you do have the ability to flip your thing back and forth, you can do that freely.
Yeah, it's like, and not set off any, let's say, triggers. I mean, maybe not the right word here, but, it's not going to set off anybody's OCD, as it were.
I mean, unless you really get obsessed with trying to do the optimal thing, but then that's on you, kind of.
Right. It's also, that's kind of how you get to the optimal playthrough anyway. Like, you play and refine until, you can do it just robotically. It's certainly capable with a game like this.
Yeah.
But and the game does have challenge. It's not a cakewalk the whole way through. It's just, in terms, and Robert was very careful to design the game like that. He wanted it to be as relaxing as possible and still be, a gamey game and not like an experience. With fail states and progression, it's still got, what things we would identify as typical gameplay mechanics. No narrative-driven experiences here. And as far as the aesthetic goes, it's minimalist. And it's minimalist, like, in the actual classical artistical sense of the word. You know, everything is abstract objects that take up the minimum of space and color. You know, it's all white on starry midnight blue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are a lot of puzzle games in this particular art style. Like, and it works. Like, it's just there, you know, it being a minimalistic style, there's not much to say about it. You know, it's not even like anthropomorphized. Like, you're not, you don't control like an avatar, and this is actually their fishing rod, and, you know, they're collecting stones or whatever. It's pure abstract shapes.
Uh-huh.
You know, music is similarly relaxing, although it's like the one tune.
Yeah.
It's so mellow. I'm having trouble remembering it. Once again, this game is very attuned towards a relaxing aesthetic.
I mean, for puzzle games, that's what really. For puzzle game, optimally, unless it's a sound-based puzzle game, in which case, you can talk with my good friends Nagatali and Elemental Ogre, and they'll have discussions with your fists and their fists in your faces or whatever. But ideally, you should be able to do puzzle games with the sound on or the sound off, or listening to podcasts or whatever.
Yeah, and this is definitely a game you'd probably do a few puzzles and then do something else. That's kind of how I handled it. Like, because once again, you know, this game is pretty simple in terms of its mechanics. It's fun, and, you know, certainly some of the, like I said, some of the larger puzzles did keep me occupied for longer, but this just wasn't a long-term game. This wasn't a game I found myself wanting to sit down for hours on end and play. It is
an easy game to come back to at another time if you want to.
Right. It's, you know, and also this game is very touch-friendly.
Yes, all you're doing, everything you're doing is one touch, so.
Yeah. So this game will work well on a mobile device. Also worth mentioning, though, both the first and second games are in the works for the Nintendo Switch. We just do not have an ETA on that, so we can't really rank the Nintendo Switch version of this into the equation currently. We can only take into account what is currently available, because SiNKR 2 for the Nintendo Switch could come out in December, for example. No, it's like it's coming. It's just we do not know. On that note, pricing. So the game, SiNKR 2 by itself, on Windows, on Steam, clocks in at $3. Like, the SiNKR Puzzles bundle clocks in at $3.73. And you've got the new Hook, Line, and Sinker bundle, which is SiNKR 2, Lines, Hook, and Liner, or Line, Lyne. 3 other puzzle games with SiNKR 2. Once again, these are games that are outside of the purview of this review. Although I have played the Lines, it's a puzzle game. You know, it is a puzzle game that's actually a bit simpler than this one. But once again, that's outside the review lines, as it were. But that bundle clocks in at $6.76. Mobile. So we've actually got some differentiated prices here, or rather price, because the Android version is also $2.99. The Apple version is $1.99 for whatever reason. I'm like, it is $1, but you know that is you know, when we're talking about price ranges this low, that is a notable discount. And it's also worth noting, like, the App Store version of this game is compatible with all Apple devices. That is to say, iPhone, iPad, iMessage, and even Apple TV. Also, I don't think anyone here tried this, but we've been told that this game is very controller compatible. I don't doubt that it is, but with a game like this, it didn't seem to make any sort of sense to play without, with anything other than a mouse on PC. I do believe that there's also like I want to say it was a Xbox version in development. Like, I think it was the Xbox One. It's like Xbox One and not PlayStation 4. I don't know. Bit fuzzy on those details, sorry. But we just didn't talk about that version too much.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the Switch version more because, well, this game seems like a good fit for the Switch.
Mm-hmm. Especially since the Switch does have touch controls if you're playing in portable mode.
Yeah, and I think that's the idea there. Like, anyway, in terms of pricing, any of these prices will do. It's like $3 is perfectly fine. Clearly picking up the first game with the second game at, like literally pennies more is good. And even though we can't speak to the other games in the Hook, Line, and Sinker bundle, the bundle is $6.76. That's like less than a meal at McDonald's.
Yeah, that's a reasonable price for like just this game, probably. So
yeah,
maybe a little high, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's like basically all the pricing options check out, both on mobile and Steam, which is always nice. As a game itself, it's a solid puzzle game. It's a bit on the bland side. I mean, that's kind of the point. And it's not something that's going to hook you like, say, Tetris or Bejeweled. I mean, once again, those are kind of my gold standards. Granted, those are different puzzle games, but those are just kind of the puzzle games I've actually spent hours on. As opposed to this, which is a very, okay, I'll breeze through a couple of levels and then, I don't know, maybe play some Peggle or something. Other thoughts from you guys?
I enjoyed it pretty well. It's one of those puzzle games that is, the whole point is that the rules are very simple, so.
Right. Okay.
I didn't get to play a whole much of it due to some issues this week with the electricity, but what I did get to play of it, I enjoyed. Like I've been saying, it wasn't stressful. It was actually relaxing.
Right. Okay. So I think that'll about do it for this review session. Yeah, this was pretty short, but once again, we just had 3 simple games to get through. So it goes sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the week ahead. So Gamescom is this week. We'll be keeping an eye on the festivities, but don't expect any broadcasts since this is a Eurocentric event. So all the times are geared towards Europe. Like, nobody's wanting to get up at 9 in the morning to cover this. Like, that doesn't preclude some of us being up at that time. It's just, if we do broadcast at that time, people get grumbly. Like, anyway, as far as the show itself is concerned, coming up on Wednesday, August 21st, we'll be having our good friend Stephen Kick from Night Dive Studios back on the broadcast, and he'll be bringing along one of his employees, one Samuel Kaiser Viral. He is the mastermind behind the Kex engine. The Kex engine being Night Dive's in-house classics engine, I guess is a good way of putting it. It's the engine that they've been putting stuff like Blood, Turok, the original System Shock, Forsaken, all of those games on to make them compatible with modern devices and such. And they've been doing more so than not. We'll be getting into all of that on Wednesday. We'll probably be also getting an update on the System Shock remake. I mean, System Shock 2, the Enhanced Edition. There's actually quite a bit to talk about this time around. So looking forward to that. No Friday show this week. So just the one interview. And yeah, until then, we wish you well.